Hey makers, this is Dhruvin and I welcome you all to the fourth episode of my new segment called Talk with Devs. This is the segment where I am inviting industry experts around the globe and we are discussing about few things and leveraging their expertise and gain our knowledge. Today's session is also one of the interesting session where we are going to talk about AI Builder form processing with Power Automate RPA. And to present this session today on my show, we have our industry expert who has 14 plus years in this industry. And since last 10 plus years, he is working in Microsoft. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I welcome Mr. Steve Winward on my show. So, let me talk few things about Steve. He is working as a technical director for business application at Microsoft, and he is an active YouTuber publishing content for different Power Platform things like Power Apps, Power BI, and Power Automate. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, a very warm welcome to Mr. Steve Winward on my show. So, hi Steve, good morning.
Hello, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. First of all, Steve, a very warm welcome to on my show. Thank you so much for your most valuable time and sharing this amazing concept with us today on my show. I'm honored to have you on my show.
And thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. Thank you for reaching out. And also thank you for everything you've done for the community with all the amazing contributions you've made to your YouTube channel. And I just want to say I'm really humbled to be on this channel today. So thank you.
So before we get started, Steve, I have few questions for you. Like we all know that Steve is working as a technical director at Microsoft, but we just wanted to know that, whenever you have spare time, so what you would like to do apart from all of these technical things?
Yeah, sure. So, first off, I am a nerd when it comes to technology. So I love playing around with technology, but in my free time, something I do enjoy, I love to cook. And so it's kind of just a nice creative outlet. And so things like bread making, pizza making, anything like that, I've just found a lot of enjoyment with. And so that's kind of a passion of mine.
All right, that's really great. Cooking is something, which is also one of my favorite tasks as well. Like during weekend, mostly I'm a very foodie. Like
Yes.
mostly at every weekend, I would try to, make some different recipe and try to explore over that area as well. So that's great. Second thing that I wanted to ask you that in today's session, what we are going to cover, if you can describe something about today's overall presentation.
Sure. Yeah, and so with this demo that I'm about to show you, it's going to be a combination of using AI Builder form processing with RPA. And I think when you combine these two technologies, you get some really powerful results. And so this is something that I'm really pumped about because I think there's a lot of situations where organizations don't necessarily have control end to end of how they capture the data or how they input the data into another system. And this solution I'm going to present is something that I think is a great solution to still automate that when you necessarily don't have control over everything that you're working with. And so in this solution, it's going to be you get some forms, you got to figure out a way to get the data automatically. You also have to have a way to automatically put that data into a form as well to then input it into another environment. And so that's kind of a high level what we're working at today.
That's really great, and we are really excited to, learn all of this thing from this particular session. So I think before we get started, let me share his YouTube channel on my screen. The channel URL is available in the description box as well as in the comment section, the first pinned comment. And during this entire session, if you have any question or something that you wanted to share with Steve, you can connect him using different social media handles. So you can simply search Steve's name on YouTube as well, like Steve Winward Power Platform, and you will get his profile. As well as if you want to connect him on LinkedIn, GitHub, and Twitter, here are the links. The links are also available in the description box, so you can directly connect Steve on his LinkedIn, GitHub, and Twitter using this particular URLs that you are able to see on this cover page. So just click on those links and you are good to connect Steve on his all social media handles like Twitter handle, his GitHub repository, as well as his LinkedIn account. Also, one more important thing that the session that we are going to represent today on my show, every file is available on Steve's GitHub repository, and I will share this link with you in the description box as well. So you can just focus on the learning part, and after that you can practice all of these things by your own. So I recommend everyone to follow Steve. He's on Steve on his YouTube channel. So subscribe the channel and press the bell icon so you will never miss any updates from his channel, because he's uploading great content on his channel. So we can see we can go to the video section and we can see lots more good content on his show, and in future as well we are able to see much more content on his channel. So I personally recommend everyone to follow him so you will never miss any updates from Steve. So I'm not taking more time over here, and I would like to hand over the stage to Steve. So Steve, now you can start with your session, and all stage is yours. Thanks a lot.
Great. Great. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. So let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly. So I first want to do just a really quick intro of what I'm going to be presenting here. Now, I think a lot of you all already know what Power Automate is, but I'm going to be covering specifically RPA. And when you look at automation, it's really important to kind of differentiate things that you're using modern APIs with, things like Outlook, OneDrive, SharePoint. All of those have modern APIs, and you can just use the connectors out of the box with Power Automate to connect to those. Now, there's also on the other side of the equation, legacy applications that don't have APIs that are well defined for you to automate against easily. In that scenario, that's what you need RPA, robotic process automation, for. Really, you can think of this as like Excel macros on steroids, where you can record human interactions against a old school client application on your platform, or also a legacy application in the browser. That's really what RPA is, and that's what we're going to be talking about inside of Power Automate today. And just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up here, there's a lot of things you can do today with Power Automate's RPA tooling. So we support Win32 applications, but there's a number of other thick client applications that we support as well. And we also support a lot of different browsers. So if your application only runs in a certain browser, you can automate that with RPA today. Now, the other solution we're going to be talking about is AI Builder. And AI Builder is something to me that I'm really excited about, because it's really about enabling more people to use AI. And with AI Builder inside of the Power Platform, we have pre-built models that you can take advantage of right away to start getting information out of data. And to show you just some of the different options we have in AI Builder, here's just a couple. I'm going to be zooming in on form processing for this demo. Form processing in the sense that I have a number of forms that I want to automatically extract information out of. And then I want to be able to do something with that after I get that. But there's a lot of other options with AI Builder. That's not the only one. The other thing I wanted to highlight here too is form processing today only supports the English language, but we've made an announcement that in August, it's going to support 72 languages. So we're really expanding the capability of the form processing in the near future here. And in terms of the actual solution that I'm going to be demoing here, I just wanted to frame what's the problem. The problem here is that I've got a number of food sign-up forms that people have filled out. Some of them have digitally filled it out like we see here. Other people have handwritten in this form and scanned it and emailed it to me. My challenge is that I have a number of these forms that I need to go into this application here on the right and input that information. Traditionally, what I would do is I would one by one read these files manually, and then I would input the information from this form and paste that into the web application. What I'm going to show you is how you could automate that. Now, you might also be wondering, well, what if I just create an application where people would enter in the information automatically? Yes, absolutely. That is the best way to go about this problem. But there's a number of scenarios where maybe there's two different organizations and you don't necessarily have control of how that form is initially created. If you do, then absolutely go ahead and create a totally digital solution there, and you don't have this problem. But when you do have this problem, I'm going to show you how you can go ahead and automate that. And just zooming in on the solution, these are the high-level products that we're going to be using here. AI Builder. Specifically, we're going to train AI Builder how to understand this particular food sign-up form, and then how to extract the fields out automatically. We're also going to use Power Automate Desktop, which is our RPA solution, to then automate ourselves going to that legacy web application. So we're going to take the results from AI Builder and then input that into a web application through Power Automate Desktop, which is our RPA solution. And then we're going to bring it all together in Power Automate with a cloud flow where we're going to take the input of a form, in this case it's going to be PDF, extract the fields automatically, and then pass that off to RPA, and then take those results and put that into the web application. So we're going to automate that end to end, which I think is really, really cool. All right, so that's all the slides. Let me get into what the solution looks like. I'm going to show you the final solution, and then we'll back into how did I build these. So right here, I've got that cloud flow that's going to be doing a number of things, but what we're going to do is let's go ahead and run this. So I'm going to go ahead and run. And the only input on this flow is a PDF file. Now, all of these PDF files that I've used, both to train the model and also to test the model, are available on GitHub. So you're welcome to check that out. And I'm going to go to this one here, test form 1_complete. And let's just take a look at what that looks like before I kick off this flow. So this is the form. It was actually handwritten, not digitally filled out. It was scanned and then emailed. You can see in this case, it's Bob's birthday for the event. And there's a number of different pieces of information here. I'm going to now use AI Builder to automatically extract this. And what I think is really cool is that AI Builder not just works for digital text, but also handwritten text as well. So let's go ahead and kick this off. So I've selected that file for the flow. Let's go ahead and run this. So that kicked off. Now we can actually look at this real time to see what's going on here. And what we'll do here is we're going to watch this kind of in real time. So it just got kicked off. The next thing it should do is then call AI Builder. So we should see that shortly. Okay, great. AI Builder completed. The next thing it's going to do is it's going to run the Power Automate Desktop RPA process, which we'll see in a second is locally then going to open up the web application. So we can see this, and it's one by one putting the pieces of information from that handwritten form into the web app. And then it submitted that. And then there was this record ID here that's part of the web application. So 2021-3682. I wanted to also extract that from the RPA process, and I'll show you that result in a second. And just to kind of look at this at another level, let's look at the original file. And I want to look at this side by side with the submission. And you can see that it did a really good job here. Now, full disclosure, the one thing it didn't do quite right is the comma right here, but not the end of the world. Everything else it got exact, which I think is awesome. And this to me is really the power when you combine AI Builder form processing with RPA. You can do some really amazing things. Now, the next question is how did I get here? How did I put this all together? So let me kind of walk through what that looked like and how I did that. So the first thing that I did is I actually created a new AI Builder model, and I'm just going to start this process so you can see what that looks like, and then I'll show you the finished result. Once again, there's a number of different models you have available in AI Builder, but in this case, what we want is a form processing model, and we'll call this the demo model. And we're going to go ahead and create this. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to then use 5 test documents to train the model. The other thing we would want to do here is we would actually want to do some fields. I'm not going to do all of the fields for this demo, but in the solution file that I've provided on GitHub, you can get the exact model I just used on this demo. But let me just do a few. So we'll do the event name. I'll add that. I'll add the date. I'll add the time, and then I'll add the location. And so these are the fields that we want to now extract. The next thing we have to do is we have to create what's called a collection. Collections are really just the test files that you're going to train your model with. So we'll go ahead and create a new collection. And here is where I'm going to upload some files. And once again, these are the files that are on GitHub today, so you can get started right away. And for this, I'm going to use the handwritten ones. For the full demo I just showed, I did both the 5 digital and the 5 handwritten, so I had a better sample size. But for the purpose of the demo, I'm just going to show you just the 5 handwritten ones, so we'll go ahead and open that. And we'll go ahead and upload. Now this will take a second because what it's going to do is it's going to upload these files, then it's going to analyze them. Specifically, it's going to analyze them for where is the text in these files. So we'll close that. We're going to say analyze. And this does take a few moments here. All right, great. So now it's analyzed those 5 files we uploaded to our collection. The next thing we need to do is just start tagging where we're seeing the fields that we had defined. So once again, we only defined a few of them, not all of them, but let's just walk through this. I'm going to drag the company cookout, and then I'm going to tag that with event name. I'm then going to do that for date, and I'll choose date. We'll select the time, tag that, and then from there, I'm going to select the location and tag that. That is the first form that we've trained. Let's go to the next one. And what's really fascinating here is just with one trained file, you now see that it's auto tagging the date and the location, which is really great. I'm now going to mark this one with time, and then I'm going to mark the next one with event name, and we'll go next. Once again, it automatically got date and location, but let's go ahead and train the time, and we'll train the event name, and we'll go next. We've got 2 more to go. And notice here on this one, it didn't get the location quite right, but that's okay because I can click here and I can actually redrag it and correct that to be that and confirm the changes. And so then let's go to the time again. We'll select that. We'll choose the event name and we'll select that. And we've got 1 more to go before we're ready. And then lastly, we'll go ahead and just train it with the time and the event name again. And that's it. So we've just trained our first AI model for form processing. We'll go ahead and click the train. This is now going to actually publish the model so that we can then test it to see how well it does against our test set. But the key takeaway I want you all to get from here is that it's super easy to get started with AI. It's no longer something that you have to be a Python developer to be able to take advantage of AI now. It's really easy to walk through that process to train. In this case, what does a form look like for your organization? And how do you want, what kind of information do you want to get out of that? And so now when we go here, you'll see that that demo model we just created, it's still training. It will take a few moments to get ready. But let me show you the actual finished one that I use in that demo, just to show you how you can quickly verify what's going on here. There's this quick test functionality. If I click on that, I can now upload a test file to see how is my model doing against the test file. So we'll go ahead and choose the same one we did before. And what we'll get here in a second is a visual representation of the fields that it's extracting from the model. And what we see here is when we hover over these boxes, we see the different field names that it's actually extracting automatically. And with each one, there's also a confidence score associated with that. What's really interesting about that is if the confidence score was low enough, you could do something in your flow to say, if the score is low, let's have somebody manually review that specific form. And then you could stop it before it proceeds to the next step of automation. So you've got a lot of control and flexibility with how this works. All right, so that is how the AI Builder side of the house was set up. Let's switch gears to Power Automate Desktop, and I can show you how I created the RPA process. So I'm going to pull up Power Automate Desktop. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a similar thing. I've got the finished one, which once again is in the solution file on GitHub. I'm going to create a new one just to show you the initial steps I did. And then I'll show you the finished one to show you some of the extra things that I did along the way. So we'll go ahead and create a new flow, and we'll just call this test RPA flow. We'll create that. Okay, and now with this is the Power Automate Desktop tooling. If you're not familiar with this, this came from the Softomotive acquisition that we did. So previously, this tooling was called Softomotive. Microsoft acquired this. This is the new experience that you get for RPA with Power Automate. On the left here are a number of built-in actions that you can do for automation on your desktop. And then on the top here, the key takeaway here, what we're going to be using for the web app, are there's different recorders. So you can either open up a client application on your Windows device, or you can open up a browser and then automate whatever you would do against the browser. That's what we're going to do here. So I'm going to launch the web recorder. And once again, you get to choose which browser you want. So in the slides, I had mentioned that. So we'll do Edge. And from here, now what we have to do is we have to go to the site that we want to do our automation with. So this is the site. And by the way, this is publicly available. Anybody can get to this to once again test this. I'm going to start the recording here. So I'm going to click on record. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start putting text into these fields, and let's just do a few. So I'm going to call the event name of Bob's birthday, and we'll do an event date of today, which is 6/4/2021. We'll select a time, and we'll say this is 12:11 p.m. And the location we'll say is Washington, D.C. And then from there, I'm just going to click on the create, which is going to submit the form. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I really want to get this value. So this is a unique value that is submitted after the record's been submitted. I'm going to right click that and say, I'm going to right click that, extract element, and choose the text on that element. And what you see on the left is all of those actions I just did got recorded. It remembered everything that I did and recorded all that. We'll go ahead and say finish. And what will happen now is we see in the Power Automate desktop tooling, all of those actions were just then recorded and added here. And now what we can do additionally is how would we take the information from AI Builder and populate that here? Because right now, I just hard coded things. For example, I just put Bob's birthday as input. But really what we want here is we want to somehow give Power Automate a way to input the actual value there. And to do that, you use variables. So on the right here, we can create new variables. So let's do one for the event name. We'll create a new input variable, and we're going to give it a name of the event name. And we can give it a default value. The default value is what would you want to test it with if there were no value provided. So we'll just say Bob's Cookout. And then from there, we're also going to give it an external name. I always just name the external name the same as the variable name. So we'll go ahead and make those the same. And now we created our first variable. What you'll see in Power Automate is that that variable is exposed in Power Automate as an option to input now. But let's go back here to just update this completely. If I go to here, I'm going to replace the hard-coded text with a variable. If you click on this little X icon, you can now see all the variables available. And I'll click on the event name. And now there is this kind of naming convention of the percent sign. So it's percent event name percent. That is just the way that you describe what a variable is. So we'll go ahead and save that. And now back to this variable, I'm going to call it something that was different than I originally did. So we'll go ahead and edit this. And instead of Bob's Cookout test, I'll say Steve's first YouTube test. And I'll update that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually test my RPA. So all the other ones are still hard-coded, but the event name will be Steve's first YouTube demo. So let's go ahead and run this. I'll click on run. And now you can see that all the things got populated, including Steve's first YouTube test. And so that's a really easy way that you can quickly verify what's going on. And I want to show you one last thing here before I show you the final solution. Now, on some of the handwritten scans with the OCR, sometimes it'll detect that there's spaces between things that really weren't spaces, but because it's handwritten, it's harder to tell from an API perspective. And let me just show you a way that I was able to fix that. So let me create a new variable here. And this one's going to be called date. And then let's give it a value. And in this case here, I'm going to intentionally put spaces between that, simulating if we got handwritten text that detected spaces where maybe we don't want spaces. So I'll go ahead and update that. And then the next thing I'm going to do here is in the actions over here, there's a replace action. So what I can do is I can actually replace text of another variable. And so what I want to do is I want to replace the event name variable. And I'm going to use a little bit of regex here. So I'm just going to say that anytime you find any white space, what we're going to do is we're going to replace that with empty. And in this case here, we use a little bit of a special syntax in the Power Automate desktop. It's %, quote, quote, %, which is just the escape sequence for empty in this case. And in this case, we're going to call this the replaced date. So we just created a new variable. And really what we're doing is we're just taking the input, which has the spaces, and then we're going to remove all of that to get it to a place where then, let's move this up, hold on. And here, instead of a hard-coded value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the replaced value, replace date, select, we'll say save. Now I'm getting an error here. Let me go back into here and see what's going on here. Text to find, oh, can't be empty. Let me go back and put the regex expression again. We'll save that. Perfect. And so now let's go ahead and run this. So just to kind of highlight, the input has a bunch of spaces on the date, but we're going to try to fix that with a replace operation. And let's just run this just to verify that that works correctly. So what we should see for the date, oh, okay, so I need to go back and do that quite right. Let's go back to the replace operation. And so, okay, so I shouldn't have parsed the event name. I needed to actually parse the date. So I apologize about that. Let's go back to date. We'll select that. And now we're good to go. And let's run that one more time. This is one of the nice things about having this debugging experience with our RPA tooling. So now what we can see there, the event date is what we would expect now. There's no spaces, whereas the input had a bunch of spaces. That was a key thing that I did with the final solution, and I'll show that in a second. So what I want to show now is the final RPA solution I put together, which is a little bit different from the other one, but I wanted to at least show you the building blocks before I got to this one. So let's go ahead and look at the final RPA solution I put together. Okay, so what we're looking at here is the final solution, and you'll see that I've defined all of the variable names for that form. They're all here. I've also done a number of replace operations as well. And the other thing I'm showing here is that you can create what are called subflows inside of an RPA process. So you can logically separate out different operations. You can also do this if you had conditional. So if you had a certain condition that was met, you could run one subflow. And if another condition was met, you could run a totally different subflow. So that's kind of a nice way you can logically organize your RPA processes. So in this case, I had two subflows that both get run. One is just to update the variables, which are doing that replacing, looking for spaces if it was a handwritten document, and just removing the spaces. The other subflow is actually then populating the web app. So both of those are defined separately, which is, I think, a little bit cleaner. And then in my main subflow, I just call both. And so I just think it's a nicer way to organize that. But that's how all that was put together. And once again, this is available in that solution file that I have on GitHub too. So you can go ahead and download that, install it in your environment, and take a look on your own too. Now, the last thing I want to show you is just how the Cloudflow was all put together. So let's go back to Power Automate. And let's actually just look at the flow. So this is the Cloudflow that runs all of that, right? It's kind of orchestrating both the call to AI Builder, getting the results, and then making the call to Power Automate Desktop. So I start this off with just taking the file as input. In this case, I assume it's a PDF, but they could also be images as well. They don't just have to be PDFs. I then make a call to AI Builder, and it's just calling that model, right? So you have an option of what you want to pick. And the form type, in this case, I assumed it was PDF, but you could do that however you wanted to. And I'm just passing whatever the input was to that operation. And then the next thing that I do is I then have a step to actually call Power Automate Desktop. And this is where I once again define what's the flow that I want to run from an RPA perspective. And notice here, there's also an option for attended or unattended. And I didn't talk about this before. Attended is what we've just seen already. You see it running, but that means you have to be logged on to the workstation for the process to run. Unattended is a little bit different, where you're actually installing that on a server, and the RPA process would run with nobody logged in, and it would just be fully automated. And so from a licensing perspective, you'll see that there's different licenses. One is for RPA attended, which means it's running on the end user's workstation, or unattended, which means that it would run on a server. But in this case, we chose attended. And then the nice thing here is that all of the output of that AI model are just available to me as just variables here. And so I just populated each one, matching that to the variable names that I did for Power Automate. And if we go back here, I can bring this side by side. What you'll see is that all of these input variables here are the same ones that are here. They may be in a slightly different order, but that is how you can kind of integrate the cloud flow with your Power Automate desktop flow. And that's it. That's how it runs end to end. There's one other thing I wanted to share with you that I think is pretty neat, where you can look at the run history. And if you've ever done Power Automate, you're probably familiar with this. So you can see all the details step by step of what's going on. But the other thing that I think is really neat that the product group has done to tie both cloud flows together with RPA flows is that you can actually drill into the details. In this case, if I went back to my food sign up process locally here, I can step by step and see what were all the different values of each step in the cloud service. And to do that, I can go down here and click on See Run Details. And what this is going to do is it's going to load the run details specific to the RPA process. And so you see that there's the different subflows. Main, you'll see the update variables subflow, and then you'll see the call to the populate web form subflow as well. And all of those, you have the full traceability that you have, just like with a regular action in Power Automate. You can then go into the input details as well to really kind of dive into that too. So if I went to one of these populate web forms, let's go to this one here, and we just want to see what the input details look right here. That's Bob's birthday for the event name. So you have full traceability even on your RPA processes inside of the Power Automate platform. And I think that's really cool. Just from being a former developer, you can debug everything, your Cloudflow actions and your RPA actions, all in a single place. And with that, that was everything I wanted to share with you all. Dhruvin, do you have any questions or any comments about this?
No, Steve. At this moment, I do not have any question, but if you can open up your GitHub repository on your screen and
Sure.
just guide the user that how they can start with the uh, demo part, or maybe how they can install everything and get started, that would be really great for them.
Great. Yeah, so I'll do that. So I'm going to go, this is my GitHub profile. It's under Power Apps. And if you go to the write-up section, I have a AI Builder Forms demo write-up with this solution that I just shared with you all. This link will take you to a YouTube video where I walk through a lot of what I did here, but for this demo, I did kind of add on that, so you'll see it's a little bit different. But then the actual like food sign-up form, the Word document I used to create the form, right there, you can download that Word document. All of the sample files from a training perspective for AI Builder are right here too. So the digitally signed, the digitally filled out PDF files, the handwritten PDF files, and then also some test files as well, all included there. And the last thing that I did is I wrapped all this into a solution. So you can actually download the solution into your environment and get started really quickly. And if I go back to my Power Platform environment here, under Solutions, I'll just show you the solution. It's the food sign-up automation solution. And inside of here, I've got a couple of things. I've got the AI model included. I've got the Cloudflow that orchestrates all of that. And then I've also got the desktop flow, which is the Power Automate desktop flow that I showed you how to record. You can do all this, and you can get started with all this by doing a trial. So if you don't have an Office 365 tenant today, you could sign up for a 30-day trial for that. And then you can get a trial for Power Automate RPA. And then you could also get a trial for AI Builder. So you don't necessarily need a tenant today to actually get started with this.
Yeah, so Steve, that really helps to all the subscribers. and audience to get started with. So, guys, today we learned lots of new things. Actually, earlier with the existing legacy system, if we wanted to achieve similar kind of thing, we need to put lots of effort as a code developer. Now, with the help of Power Automate and Power Platform, this task becomes so easy. You can see that we have started with our AI builder, and after that we trained our model, and after that we just created one Power Automate desktop flow, and then we connected our desktop flow with the cloud flow. So this is the procedure that we followed, and as an end outcome you have already seen that how greatly we can scan our handwritten text document and easily put everything to our legacy system using the Power Automate flow. So this is one of the cool and amazing feature that we have seen in today's session, and I recommend everyone to try it by your own. And if you have any question or feel any difficulties, feel free to add your question or comment in the comment section, as well as you can comment on a GitHub repository where Steve has uploaded the solution if you face anything. And if you wanted to know any thing that you do not understand from the solution, you can provide your most valuable feedback for us, so we can get to know more about that.
Awesome. And thank you again, Dhruvin, for having me on this channel.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to, have you on my show. So, guys, let me one last thing over here. Let's go with the ending ceremony for today's show. So, once again, thank you so much, everyone, for attending this session. And I would recommend everyone to go to Steve's YouTube channel and subscribe his channel. You can simply search his name, Steve Winward Power Platform, and you will get to know his profile, as well as the links are always down below in the description box, so go through that. If you wanted to follow Steve on different social media handles like Twitter and LinkedIn, here are the links, and links are also available in the description box. So this is the Twitter profile for Steve, Steve underscore Winward. You can follow him on Twitter. You can also follow him on his LinkedIn profile, and GitHub URL is also available in the description box, and the solution file that Steve represented, that URL is also available for your practice. And at last, I would like to thank Steve for this amazing content, and we learned lots of new things from today's session. So thanks a lot for your most valuable time in this morning and share your knowledge with us.
And thank you. Thank you again, Dhruvin.
Thanks a lot, Steve. And at last, let's move towards my YouTube channel. So, if you are for the first time to my channel, and if you are watching me for the first time, make sure that you hit subscribe and press the bell notification to never miss any updates from my channel. I'm uploading regular content on Power BI, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, Teams, and SharePoint on my channel. So make sure you subscribe so you will never miss any updates from my channel. Meantime, if you wanted to follow me on all my social media handles, here is the URL, that is Linktree URL, from where you can find all my social media handles like Instagram, LinkedIn, blogs, Twitter, everything. And you can also follow me on my Twitter using this URL and Instagram using this URL. And make sure that you follow me on Instagram, because here I'm uploading different short tips and tricks related Power Platform in form of post, reels, and different IGTV content. So make sure that you follow, so you will have some Insta learning for Power Platform as well. And if you are interested for different audio podcast, there is a podcast channel as well, that where I'm uploading different Power Platform podcast on my channel. So you can listen your favorite podcast on your different podcast platform like Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, and much more. So that's all for today's session. This is Dhruvin signing off. See you in the next session. Have a great day. Goodbye.